zone is under assault.
Barrier deployed.
Friendly's captured.
We have to win that or not.
Capture zone changing location. Get there. They're attacking the zone.
XDefiant feels like the old days. Like the old days when I would get out of school, take the bus home, finish my homework, then hop into an Xbox Live party with my closest friends and play Modern Warfare 2 for the rest of the night. It satiates this want for a feeling of nostalgia, but also brings a slight breath of fresh air to a genre of video games that has been relatively unchanged for decades. Is it a revolutionary installment for the casual first-person shooters? No, definitely not. But what XDefiant does do is put much-needed pressure on the Call of Duty franchise, showing that they might not be the only ones with skin in the game anymore. Call of Duty has slowly degraded over the last however many years, in a way releasing games that end up being exactly the same as the previous year's games, with a few new quirks that set it apart, in a way making the new installment worse. Although I have hope for the new Black Ops this year, I think it's hard to deny that the franchise has not felt the same as it did many years ago when it was in its golden age. Back to the star of today's show, though. XDefiant came to town as a free-to-play game with a purchasable battle pass that unlocks different cosmetics to use within the game. It does a lot of things well, but it also does some bad things. Moving forward, I'll talk about the different core mechanics and systems within the game, highlighting what I think is done well, what might need some work, and what is done poorly. My name is Dante, and thanks for tuning in today. Consider liking the video and subscribing if you enjoyed what you're listening to. To start off, let's chat about the most important part of a casual FPS game, the gunplay. XDefiant brings a familiar, fast-paced, moderately quick time-to-kill style of gunplay that just feels crisp. All of the guns I've used so far feel very usable. Each class of primary weapon offers an advantage in a certain type of encounter that other classes just don't excel in, and I feel that they're pretty balanced with the exception of one red herring that we'll get to in a bit. Let's talk about the class of weapons, what I think is best, the worst, and one, let's say, slept-on gun. And it's important to note before I get into this, that just because I think a gun is the worst in its class, doesn't mean it's bad. In general, like I mentioned above, all of the weapons are viable and usable. Let's talk about assault rifles. They excel at medium-range combat, with all but one being fully automatic. Their time to kill is moderate to fast in most scenarios, and this is definitely the most well-rounded class of weapons in the game. The best assault rifle, in my opinion, would likely be the MDR. This is unlocked via the Battle Pass as a free reward at Tier 10. This weapon has little to no recoil and needs virtually no attachments to be usable. This is a great thing to unlock as quickly as possible because in most maps you'll be able to dominate at any range. The worst assault rifle, in my opinion, is the M4. This will most likely be one of the first choices you pick up when you first start the game, and it just works. Nothing stands out about it other than the classic look and feel of using it. It does tend to get outgunned by other options in the AR class. Lastly, my sleeper pick for ARs is the M16. The 3-round burst rifle can kill in 2 bursts if well placed, and if I'm not mistaken, even 1 burst at close range with all headshots. The rate of fire is fast when it bursts, but the time between bursts can make it awkward to use in close range encounters. Which is why I think it does get outclassed by the other full auto weapons in the AR category at a close range. Next, let's talk about SMGs. This fast-moving, lightweight class of weapons excels at close-range encounters with an extremely fast time to kill at this range that tends to fall off as the encounters gain distance. The best SMG has to be the MP7. It's quick, its rate of fire is nice, and it's controllable. This gun just hits. The worst SMG in the class is the MP5. I don't have much to say other than it just feels like it gets outgunned by most other choices. The sleeper for this class is definitely going to be the P90. It's got a very fast rate of fire, very controllable recoil, and a 50-round mag. Great for multi-kills and just not reloading in general. Next, we'll look at shotguns. These are extremely close-range options that fall off hard the further away your target is. This class of weapon plays well into small maps, but the larger the map and the longer the lanes are, the worse a shotgun will perform. The best shotgun in my opinion is the AA-12. It just shoots the fastest and feels like when you're in its sweet spot range, it's just great to use. The pump on paper is probably my least favorite. Although it can one-shot at close range, I feel like it just gets outperformed by most weapons. In terms of the sleeper for this category, I like the double barrel. Although there's a very slow reload time, this thing cranks up close and it just feels awesome to use. Next, we'll have a look at the LMGs. This is a weapon class I've used the least, but from what I've found, these all feel just okay. LMGs have struggled to find a place in games like this, as they usually feel clunky to use and have similar damage and recoil to the ARs. In most cases, the large magazines don't tend to make up for the slower ADS and movement speeds they bring. I haven't ranked any of the weapons in this category, and I don't plan to do so because I just don't use them that often. Next, we have what I think will be the first controversial one here, snipers. I love the snipers in XDefiant. They're high risk, high reward. If you can hit your shots, you'll be rewarded, but if you miss one, you're going back to spawn. A lot of people complain about the damage they do, but I think these are very balanced, considering in most, if not all cases, if you miss a shot, you're done. It's just one of those things where you have to be good to use it, and if you're not good, you're going to get punished for it. The TAC-50 definitely performs the best in my opinion. It's got higher damage than the M44, but a slower reload speed and a slower ADS time. I feel like the damage definitely outweighs the slower speed in this point in time, just because having that one-shot kill is extremely important to being successful with these sniper rifles. Remember that red herring I spoke of earlier? That's the marksman rifles. These guns are broken. If you hit your shots center mass, they're going to two-shot in most, if not all cases and ranges. They somewhat suffer from the risk and reward the snipers do, however, the risk feels significantly less when you have a semi-auto weapon with a higher mag size. This class of primaries easily has the fastest time to kill in the game, and I would venture to say they need a bit of tuning to get them in line with the rest of the weapons we have access to. Next, let's take a look at the factions. This is the bread and butter of this game, and what I think makes it feel fresh. Each faction has two choosable abilities, as well as a passive and an ultimate. We'll look at all of the abilities that each faction has access to, and some of my thoughts on their performance. Libertad passively heal themselves and allies within a certain range. Their base abilities are a placeable canister that heals over time to themselves and allies standing within its range, or an activatable heal that also raises max health. Their ultimate is a larger canister that greatly increases health and consistently heals allies within the zone. Naturally, as a healing class, I feel they perform pretty well in most solo and objective-based game modes. My personal favorite, the Phantoms, their passive is just more max health. For their base abilities, you can either choose a personal riot shield or a placeable barrier that absorbs damage until destroyed or the time for the barrier runs out. For their ultimate, they have a shield surrounding them and a weapon they can fire at a short range that one-shots enemies within this shield. The Phantom's placeable shield at first seems pretty overpowered, but can easily be countered by an EMP grenade. Echelon are the recon agents in this game. Their passive makes them not appear on enemy minimaps, similar to the Ghost perk in the Call of Duty games. Their abilities grant you a choice between going nearly full invisible or an activatable ability that shows enemy positions through walls. Their ultimate turns you into Sam Fisher, giving you a suppressed 5/7 that does insane damage, and gives you wall hacks for a period of time. The Cleaners shoot incendiary rounds that deal damage over time, but decrease their overall range. They have access to launch a drone that puts fire on the ground and explodes after traveling some distance, or a Molotov that drops where they're standing. Their ultimate grants them bonus max health and a flamethrower that does big damage at a close range. Lastly, DeadSec have a passive that slowly replenishes their abilities. For those abilities, they have access to a spider bot that seeks and stuns nearby enemies, or the ability to hack and steal the enemy team's gadgets. Their ultimate ability is an EMP that disables enemy HUD, minimap, and gadgets within an area of effect. In terms of tuning, I do think the factions are pretty balanced for the most part. However, I do feel like the Phantoms are slightly overtuned. I don't like how both of their gadgets require you to run certain equipment like the EMP grenade or a sticky grenade to be able to counter them, and I feel like even if that wasn't the case, the shield health is just too big at this moment. Lastly, I would like to touch on the map design within XDefiant. They don't try anything crazy here. They don't try to innovate what an FPS map should be. They just stick to the tried and true 3-lane map design that a lot of other FPS games have strayed away from. None of the maps stand out as bad, and I enjoy the pace that each map plays out at. The spawns seem pretty fair for each game mode, whether it be deathmatch or objective-based modes like domination or occupy. Although sometimes I think the occupy spawns can be a little far away from the objective, but that could be slightly subjective on my end. Overall, I think XDefiant is going to do pretty well in this current casual FPS space that it's found itself in. The game has been released and is making waves around with popular creators playing it beyond what they were sponsored to, and even catching the eye of someone like me who has been habitually playing World of Warcraft and League of Legends for most of this year. I do think the lifespan of this game is going to be heavily determined by the quality of its future updates, and especially the quality of the next Call of Duty that releases this winter. Regardless of how long it lasts, I think it's worth giving it a download and trying it out. After all, it is free to play, and odds are you have a couple friends that are playing it already. Thanks for tuning into this video. If you enjoyed watching, consider dropping a like. Also, tell me in the comments how you feel about the game. What's your favorite part? What do you dislike? Lastly, if you want to catch me live, go follow me on Twitch, where I sometimes stream what I'm playing. I'll put the link in the description if you'd like. Take care now. Peace out.